All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of the Chronicles. The search continues. Today, I am joined by my dear friend, and probably the only person in the world that can attest to me ever being an adult, uh, Mr. Mr. James Mann, from my formative years at ISE SMG, is joining me this evening. James, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. Honored to be a part of the series, and looking forward to an evening of some drinks and discussion with you.
Yeah, dude. Man, that's what it's all about, dude. Like I said, James and I go way back to when I was working my international education days. We certainly worked together very closely and for a very long time. Proud to consider him a dear friend then, now, and of course into the future. James, where I want to start right off the bat.
Likewise.
Perspective.
Likewise.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Your beard looks great. You look wonderful.
Thank you for saying that.
I want to start because I have perspectives on this. But I genuinely, as dry as the question seems, how did you get involved with ISE and SMG? What was your kind of path to your role and where you started and what you kind of wound up doing?
Okay, sure. I'm going to go back probably a little too far and just start from the beginning.
Yeah, man.
When I was going into college, I actually really badly wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to write for the New York Times. That was like my dream. But then I guess some things changed. I wasn't so sure where that industry was going, so I ended up kind of just making that I'll do marketing choice when I was choosing my major going into college. And I did marketing, and I really enjoyed just the subject matter and learning about it. And I did my own little writing projects on the side, and I wrote for the school paper. I was editor for the school paper in college. But then when I graduated, I ended up in public relations. After an internship in pharmaceutical advertising, they transferred me within the same organization that I had my internship in the city, and it's called Havas, and they put me at the public relations agency. I was there for about 2 years, a little over 2 years. And then a man by the name of Alexander Bruknov sent me a message on LinkedIn, believe it or not. And he caught me on working in PR in the city was like hard hours, especially because I was low, man, as low as you could be on the totem pole. So I was stuck at the office pretty much every night until like 10 o'clock, working 70-hour weeks. And I got this note from Sasha. It said Alexander, in parentheses, Sasha Bruknov. I wasn't sure if this was a man or a woman at this time. That just goes to show you like my knowledge of the Russian names. Now I've learned that all the Alexanders, they're men and they go by Sasha. But I get this message on a late night stuck in the city, and it's pretty much a very brief introduction saying, we're an international education organization looking for a marketing manager. The job will involve extensive travel and international travel. And I had just done a trip to Switzerland for my current employer for the World Economic Forum. We had a client that was like running an event there, and I was helping out with it. So it was really my first trip abroad, other than like a trip to Italy, to Rome with my family a few years before. And so I had just had that taste of international travel. I got this message on a particularly late night, and I was frustrated being stuck at work. So I responded to it. We went back and forth. I learned a little bit more about the company and the industry and the position. But honestly, coming into it, I knew nothing about international education, specifically for high school age students when I was starting. Anytime you thought of international ed, I think most people, still even now, most people I speak to, you think of higher ed, like university and college programs.
Yeah.
So went back and forth with Sasha, met with Wayne. Wayne was in the process of, the CEO of ISE, was in the process of getting an apartment in New York City, I think as an investment. So he was making trips to New York City. I was living in the city at the time on the Upper East Side and working in Midtown. So I met him for lunch and for dinner a few times. And every time I would speak with Sasha or with Wayne, I would learn a little bit more about the company. I feel like I never at any point had a formal interview. I was usually the one asking most of the questions, I feel like, in most of these meetings. But I think you having, knowing Wayne, that's kind of how he operates. It's more of a conversation. I don't think he interviews. He just has conversations. And that's what we did. And then, about a month of that, went back and forth, and I made the move. I made the decision that, he offered me the position. I accepted it, and I moved back to Long Island to be closer to the office. The reverse commute from the Upper East Side to Babylon at the time was not realistic. And being a Long Islander, a native Long Islander, it was kind of an easy move anyway. So I moved back and started, and that was over or right about, actually, no, it's a little less than 5 years ago. And I've been there ever since, just kind of learning new things every day. I think, having worked there, that you learn something new every day. You deal with new situations every day. It's an exciting industry to work in, and it's great companies, both SMG and ISC, to work for. So that was the path there. It kind of like it fell in my lap because, a lot of people do ask me all the time, how did you get this job? Because of course, I post on Instagram when I travel. Everyone thinks that my job is just me like going to the Eiffel Tower and going to the Louvre. So they always ask me, how did I get that job?
It is very much not.
I just post the fun stuff, so everybody thinks that's all the job is. But everyone always asks, like, how the hell did you get that job? And to be honest, my response is usually it fell in my lap, sort of. I got a message on LinkedIn. Like I had received messages from recruiters in the past and just ignored them. But for whatever reason, this one came at the right time and caught my attention, and the rest was really history after that.
I love it, man. Well, I'm sure glad it caught your attention, dude. I know,
because it did lead to me meeting you as well as several other people that I adore now. So it was definitely the right call. Definitely the right call. No regret.
I get a kick out of your Instagram too. But you and I had a talk pretty recently about how, and I'm not saying that you and I are the only ones, but certainly I get that the job is a lot more than the aesthetic of, hey, I get to travel,
Yeah.
I will say my favorite shot that you've ever shared on your Instagram is when I think you went to Barcelona.
I knew you were going to bring this.
Oh, I loved it. I did. It's so simple, but I loved it.
I knew this was coming.
And you're standing in front of either a fountain or a wall. Like, you would know better than me. What were you in front of?
I will give you context to that because it actually, the reason why it's such it is objectively a bad photo. That was the first time that I went to Barcelona, and I was like so excited to go. I'd been to Spain a bunch of times in the past, but like mostly just Madrid. So I went to Barcelona. I was super excited. I wanted to like have pictures of it, and then it rained the entire time, like pouring rain the entire time. So, and I was really only there for I think 2 days. It was like really quick, and we had meetings most of the time, so there was very little time to actually take photos. And the one really opportunity that we had, we were walking around at night after meetings, and it was like still misting out. So there's this mist in the air, and it was dark. And there was this fountain that the person I was with was like, yeah, this is a famous fountain. A lot of people come here and take photos. I was like, okay. So I ran in front of the fountain. I was like, let's take the picture. He literally took the picture. It was like a 2-minute ordeal. And like, that was it. That was one of the, and even when I went to make my post, that was like one of the few photos that I had. And I think your comment was like, how are we supposed to know that's even you, or something to that effect?
I said it resonates with me, man. I got a weird memory for things like that. I said, in all fairness, that could be anybody.
And you're 100% correct. 100% correct about that.
Just but a shadowed figure looking really small in front of this fountain.
It was like it was pretty much all I was able to get, and I ran with it, and you called me out on it, rightly.
Which really felt good. I'm not that nice of a guy sometimes. I'm really not. You know that.
There's a happy ending because I've been back now several times and gotten like way better photos and way cooler photos that are worth sharing. Not like.
I'm so relieved to hear that, man. Nobody deserves nice photos of Barcelona more than you. That's for sure.
It turns out it ends up being one of my favorite cities to visit also. I do absolutely love it there.
That's lovely. Is Rose is there, right? Or no?
She's right outside. Yeah, she's in Mataro.
Ooh, oh, excellent pronunciation.
Well, she really made sure that I pronounced, and I'm sure if she were sitting next to me, she'd still correct me. But that's the best I could do right now.
I'm not gonna make a habit of doing impressions, but I always remember she would be transferred to me on the line, and nonetheless she would still go, Tom, and I'd be like, yeah, yes, hello, Rose. It's like, it is Rose, and I'm just like, yep.
And I've gone and spent some time there with her. She did show me around like their city there, and
Great.
she's actually been checking in pretty frequently throughout this whole thing, just to give her perspective on what's going on in Spain and ask me how things are in New York. But yeah, I remember the phone calls as well. Usually towards the end of the day, I believe.
True enough, man. Now, James, as an international traveler, I'm curious, how can you tell if a Spanish woman is single?
If she, I don't know if I want to answer this question on recording.
I think you can tell because they go to bars alone.
I should have just let you give your punchline. I thought you wanted an honest answer from me. I'm so glad.
No. I don't know. It's not that kind of show, man. All right, dude. So I can attest for Wayne's interviews not exactly being interviews. I remember when I was being interviewed for my job, I had the luxury of Tal being there too. He was there in a different role, but Tal was there as well. And I had initially had an interview with Luke that was a little more formal.
Yeah.
That went really well, and I'm a pretty critical guy, as you know. So for me to leave an interview saying like, "Oh, I think I kind of nailed that," kind of meant something. And turns out I heard from Luke a couple days later, and he said, "Hey, we went in a different direction, but I thought you were great." Which especially knowing Luke, like he doesn't say that.
So you interviewed for like a PHP position first?
Yeah, for what DeRugo got.
Okay.
I interviewed for DeRugo's job.
I didn't know that.
And so I didn't get that, and I was a little disappointed because you're always disappointed, but especially because I felt good. And I get a call the next day from Tal, and first of all, I tell him this all the time. I couldn't tell what his name was over the phone. I called him Paul the first time I saw him.
It's not a common name, so he's the only person I know with that name.
Indeed, man. And so he said, it's like, "Hey, I appreciate your patience with Luke. We actually have you in mind for this position." So they brought me in, and I'm sitting there with Wayne and Tal. And to your point, it's not really an interview. We're just kind of talking. And we kind of reach a point where it says on my resume that I used to write about basketball. And so the NBA finals are going on at the time. And we reach a point where I'm just genuinely talking to Tal about how the finals are going. And then, like, eventually, like, Wayne's just kind of watching it. And I'm the one who kind of pulls the plug on it because I'm just like, okay, like.
Wait a second.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is? Like, one, I'm saying to myself, like, this doesn't feel like a job interview. And then two, I'm thinking, like, I'm about to say that I'm rooting for the Spurs, and this guy's about to be like, well, I like the Heat, and then I'm about to blow it. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, I pulled the plug on it. And what Wayne and I wind up talking about, we do have, like, a real talk about, like, kind of work comes first and our perspectives on, like, what office time means and things like that, you know? So it's not, like, all informal. But what I'll never forget about my interview is Wayne asked me, like, the last thing I read. And the last thing I read at the time was I reread The Omnivore's Dilemma, which is a book about, you know, where our food comes from, things like that. By now it's a little antiquated. There are better books, or at least more current books on the subject. But anyway, I'm kind of telling Wayne what it's about. And he says, and I quote, he says, "So you're a dork." He calls me a dork in the interview. And I'm just kind of like, you know, but this is what I say to him. I was like, well, everybody's a dork about something. I'd hate to meet somebody who doesn't think about something in kind of a really intense way. And he just kind of goes like, you know, like that. And that was pretty much the whole interview. And I got the call later on that day saying like, "Hey man, if you want to start, you can start."
And what was the position at that point?
Just kind of a
Like program coordinator type deal?
project manager. I was there to help Ryan House do anything. I was running the outbound program. I was
Yeah.
organizing the fan trips. I was doing that from day one.
Well, I know, like, by the time I started, you were one of the people that they said, yeah, like, Tom's done pretty much everything at this point. And that was like, I think you had been there maybe a year and a half to 2 years at that point.
And one, I was a jack of all trades from the start.
Yeah.
But what I'll always appreciate is the first thing I had to do was plan a fam trip. And I'm so grateful for that because you don't need to know what a J1 visa is. You don't literally have to know the industry. You just have to be organized, maintain a spreadsheet, and book hotels, which you and I
Can I let you know a little secret about the fam trip? And because I run that, right? Like, I've been doing that now for 5 years.
I think the groundwork, though. No.
That's exactly that's what I'm getting to. That's exactly what I'm going to say. I still use pretty much your itinerary, like almost minute by minute. There's been some little tweaks here and there, a little honing of it a little bit, but I still also use some of the language from the invitation that you wrote. I still there are certain things that I've recycled because if it's not broken, there's no reason to fix it, and I thought it was well written, so I've kept it and I reused it, and I still to this day. We just actually canceled it this May, unfortunately, which is very sad. But even we were running it, and I was planning it, and I'm still copying pieces from what you wrote up. I guess it must have been 7 years ago now.
Yeah. Good God. Well, man, that warms my heart so much, dude. That really does.
It's the truth. It's the truth. I don't give you credit in the note, but I'm giving you credit now. So.
Well, thank you, man. Very kind. I'm glad that it's withstood the test of time. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously the programs that no longer exist and things like that have been removed.
Yeah.
A lot of the other language is still, maintained to this day.
Right. Words like the and at are continue.
More than that. Like the intro part, the final part, and the programs that still exist that just had maybe some name changes. All that's still maintained.
So I have to tell you, my perspective of you coming in. I was working with, by the time you came in, I had started to really kind of make Canada my own, and that started to be my focus, running that Canadian program. There was a gentleman, I'm not going to say anything too bad, but I'll leave his name out of it. There was a gentleman working with me to kind of take the fam trip over, and it just kind of wasn't working out. So I will say, the only thing I'll say that's kind of funny, that's a little bit at his expense. I remember the day of the actual fam trip. You know me, man, better than anybody in this set. Me looking nice is one, a rarity. Two, it's hard for me to do it like more than 3 days in a row. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all know that.
It's draining.
I can hit you. I'm like the ending of one of those like 90s romance movies on that first day. Like I go from like scrub to hub real quick. You know what I'm saying? I do. But by the time day 3 rolls around, it's like, oh God. I'm running out of steam.
I don't know, man. I love the tweed suit. You rock the tweed suit.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I'm still maybe next time you come on the show, I'll rock it for you.
Okay. Deal.
But it wasn't working out with him. But I remember on the day of the fam trip, I'm rocking this black suit, and I'm rocking this. I think it was really dark purple. I don't think it was actually black, but I'm rocking this black sweatshirt, not sweatshirt, dress shirt, and my chair is black. Okay, so I'm like really Johnny cashing it up, and I remember this dude comes walking into work, and he's like, "Okay, I gotta find this," and oh man, and I'm just like. So it happens the first time, and I'm just like, "Hey man, you all right?" He's just like, "Oh my God," like apparently I blended into the chair, that I was just like this floating head, and he's just like, "Oh man, like I didn't see you," and we both laughed because that's hilarious. It happened later on in the damn fan trip, and this time the poor guy thinks he's alone, so he's like swearing to himself because it's not not going the best. You know what I'm saying? It's really not. And he thinks he's alone. And I'm like, hey man, do you need help? And he's like, my God. You literally like,
You wanted to make it known that you were there, so he didn't continue talking to himself.
Yeah. And oh dude, and he's just like,
that's the courteous thing to do. You let a little
exactly, man.
Someone else here.
Yeah, I can't have that. Boy, oh boy. You would never catch me swearing like that, but man, if I thought I was alone in the office, I'd be jumping into a Dave Matthews Band medley you didn't even ask for.
I talk to myself all the time when I don't think people are around, so I could definitely put myself in that position.
Oh man, but anyway, camp trip's not actually going well, and we get this memo that I read somewhat because I'm busy running the actual trip. Like whatever Wayne wants to organize, Wayne can organize.
Yeah.
And I get this note that we will be joined by Mr. James Mann, and it said that you were part of like a PR department.
Yes, that's where I was working at the time, technically.
Exactly. Well, I didn't know that, but I mean, bottom line, the reason for your presence was explained as like a PR thing. He's going to work on a video for SMG and just kind of chronicle the fam trip. And so I get to the actual fam trip, and you know these things. These things are so pleasant. Dude, there is only, of the people, and I'm not going to say a name, but I'm sure actually you know who this is. There's literally only one person I've ever worked with at that place where I was so grateful that I'll never have to see her.
Yeah.
And everyone else, I either actively miss or when their name does come up, I'm like, oh man, I wonder how they're doing. I swear to God, every single one of them. And the job was filled with stressful situations, you know? But like every single one of them, I'm like, oh man, I miss that. But when you get to like those kind of settings, it's very much like the lights are on and it's not fake, but it's just like, oh, hello. And it's just like, you're talking and you're pressing the flesh and you're talking about how was your trip and you're talking about the programs and this and the other thing.
You're hamming it up.
Indeed, man. So those moments that you have to professionally excuse yourself from that are kind of cherished in their own way. You know what I'm saying? And I bring that up because you and some others are over by the television by like Wayne's little outdoor bar.
The Rangers were in the playoffs. I remember this vividly.
Exactly.
And I told Wayne, I said, I'm glad to come to this thing, but the Rangers are playing. Will it be on at the party? And he said yes. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no. And so I kept going over there to just refuel, and it's because James seemed pleasant enough. Like, let's be clear, but it was also just like, here's a guy I don't have to impress, and here's the television that's on. You know what I'm saying? And if you can get 3 minutes of that at a time, like I live for that, and I think a lot of us do. You know, and so I would go over and just talk to James a little bit, and he'd be watching the game pretty intensely. So it's not like we were really chewing the breeze, but shooting the breeze rather. And although chewing the breeze, it sounds fun. But
I wouldn't know what was wrong.
So I remember on like a commercial, he's talking about how he's a big Rangers fan, and we talk about hockey a little bit because I'm not totally ignorant. But then he asks me like, "What's my favorite hockey team?" And I say to him, "Oh, it's the Ottawa Senators."
I remember this. I'm him in this story, so I remember this.
So James asks me, because he's just being the nicest guy in the world, he's like, the Ottawa Senators, like how the hell did that happen? And I say to him, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but like I say to him, I like the Ottawa Senators because me and a buddy in college, we used to think it'd be funny if like they had retro uniforms that looked like little suits so that they looked like little senators like skating around the rink. And literally that was my explanation, which if you were there with me in college is freaking hilarious. But if you're not there with me in college, I just look like a nut, you know? And so I'm telling James that just like, I like the Senators because I think it would be cool if their uniforms looked like suits. And then James is just like, oh, you know? And rest assured, man, I'm a closet nervous wreck about most things in my life. But people don't make me nervous. You know what I'm saying? People do not, and they never have, and they never will, quite frankly, knock on wood. But I remember thinking to myself, just like, man, that guy probably thinks I'm an idiot. And just like laughing and walking away. And I'm like, good luck with your video, guy, you know, like, see you later. And then I get the word, like, after the fam trip is done, that's just like, yeah, James was there to replace person X who was swearing to himself. And I'm like, oh no, that guy thinks I'm an idiot. And now I got to work with him.
See, I always, I don't remember the specifics of that conversation, but if you would have quizzed me and been like, do you remember why I told you I like the Senators? I would have said it's because you love the puns that you can make with the name of the team. Because I just remember there was an abundance of sensational.
Yes, indeed, man. You know what else like those? Gary like those. Shout out to Gary.
And then, the next year they knocked them out of the playoffs. The Senators knocked the Rangers out of the playoffs the next year, once we were already working together and we knew each other well.
Yeah.
It was a tough time for our relationship because I was pretty resentful of anyone that was happy about
strange, man, especially for a guy working in Canada all the time.
You felt bad too, though. I could tell. You were like, you felt bad for me because you didn't really care that much.
Right.
I cared a lot.
My reasoning for liking the Senators was a lot more shallow than James's reasoning for liking the Rangers. Oh, man. But anyway, I remember hearing that I was going to work with James and not being nervous about it all of a sudden, but genuinely thinking to myself, just like, well, that's one guy out the gate who thinks I'm a moron, And then I remember, and you can attest to this, Wayne has a way of like unintentionally like hyping you up sometimes,
Yes.
I'll never forget. He comes up to me on like your first day and he says like, James is pretty much going to learn everything. So I'm going to have him sit with you. And I'm like, just like, oh, okay. And that's the part that makes me a little, not nervous, but like, I'm a little like, oh man, all day, And
yeah.
And then I hear him unintentionally, because it's all a wind tunnel, and Wayne doesn't exactly whisper. And I love Wayne quite a bit, man. He took a chance on a writing major. And I think I proved him right on it, but he gave a chance on a writing major. But I'll always give him credit for that. But I remember him talking to you, and he said something like, yeah, just stick with Tom. He knows everything, and you're going to sit with him, and pretty much whatever he does, you're going to pay attention to. And like at that point, I'm just like, oh no. Because in my mind, I'm just like, I'm a kid. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get by like saying like, yeah, man, like working with this guy's kind of weird. What's your favorite Muppet? Like that's literally me.
I think by that time you had several Sesame Street characters pinned up in your office.
Man. And especially at that job, but in general, I couldn't do that job if I didn't approach it like a kid. If I didn't. And in a sense, I give you and a lot of my coworkers credit for like kind of putting up with that. But I remember being like, so like, because of the Senators thing, the guy probably already thinks I'm an idiot, and now he's got to sit with me all day. And the way I run is to just kind of like be stupid for 2 minutes, and then be smart for like 8, and then be stupid for 2 minutes, But yeah,
you spent an entire day together. You had to break it up a little bit.
Yeah, but it wasn't rough because of you, but it was rough because I kept thinking to myself like, okay, what else can I teach him?
No, I've been in that position of new people. There've been a lot of new people that have come and gone where I've been also tasked with the half day or in some rare cases full day trainings, and it's just, even if you have a lot of information to share, it's not an easy task to sit with someone for an entire day and try and train them on all the different things that we do at ISD and SMG. So it's definitely, I can relate to it now. At the time, I was just trying to be a sponge, And I will say, for the record, let the record show that I don't recall ever feeling like this guy's a clown. I never or at least not in a bad way. And then I definitely will say I never felt like I was putting up with your shenanigans either. All I know is that once you were gone, I dearly, dearly missed the shenanigans on a daily. And me and Lois both. I could speak for Lo on that one too.
Man, well, that's so kind, man. Definitely,
That's the truth.
I needed the shenanigans, that's for sure. And I do remember the first meeting we had to run together was with a gentleman who, again, I don't think we'll ever see this, but I'm not going to mention his name. But he's a guy who sends like one or two J1 kids a year, and I knew that even though we were having this meeting, he wasn't going to send any F1 kids, nothing for profit.
Yeah.
And let me know if you remember, because I'm approaching this meeting as, quite frankly, like, this is a waste of my time. Okay.
Yeah.
And I was trying to get like the WebEx up and running, and the WebEx wouldn't load all the way. And I just remember like, and you're so right. And the truth is, I think you had a little to learn from me, and then I had a little to learn from you, because I remember this WebEx wouldn't load, and you're like genuinely like, oh, what happened? Like, how can we fix it? And I'm just like, yeah, it's not working. You know? I'm just like,
It's all over. It's all over.
I'm literally saying just like, yeah, we might have to do this another day. And you're literally like, I'm like genuinely, I'm like Matthew McConaughey before like Matthew McConaughey is a thing, you know? And you're just like, what if you hit this? And I'm just like, I guess I could try that. And then I try it, and it's like, still not working. I just remember this juxtaposed style of just you, just like, we got to fix it. And I'm just like, we got to do this another day.
I was new and bright-eyed and ready to rock and roll, you know?
Yes, man. I'll never forget it, man. And I think, man, I treasure that memory quite a bit. I think I want to be careful how I say this. And I'm curious kind of your thoughts here. I want to know your thoughts. I think we're very similar in certain ways, but I think also kind of work-wise, there was a time where we were kind of the odd couple, and we just kind of made.
Oh yeah, there was an adjustment period for us of working like closely together on a lot of things, especially with Canada, because I remember the days of me wanting to just sell, but then kind of just dumping all the promises that I made onto you, you know, and that.
Yeah, I remember too.
I know you weren't happy about that, and that was me being a salesperson, I think, and maybe a little short-sighted, actually. But I recall those days. But you know what? Adversity brings us closer together.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, man. Let me hear your thoughts on. For a while, we had the band together, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. We had
what?
We had the band together, man. We had.
Oh, yeah. I do.
We had Tal at the head.
Yeah.
We had you doing a lot of the selling, a lot of the big picture, kind of like big picture perspectives. You had me being super freaking methodical about our biggest program at the time, or certainly most growing.
Fastest growing, for sure.
Yeah, indeed. And, kind of between you and me, man, I was low-key a pretty top-notch facilitator, you know, staying on top of all that stuff.
You ran that whole program by yourself. That's the reality of it. I mean, I did the marketing, but you ran it, and I was able to market it in a certain way because I knew you were running it, so I knew that things were going to get done and that students were going to be taken care of really well. So that was part of it. But Stano, don't leave out Stano.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. And last but not least, you had genuinely the Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
The entire operation was God's dog Mike Stano.
Talented guy.
And he was the literal definition of like jack of all trades, man. And like, man, it was tremendous. Because it was so much more than work, man. And I feel like I could talk your ear off about it, but like that's not the point of this show. Like, let me know, what are your thoughts on kind of that foursome and kind of that time, especially because you're still there, quite frankly.
Yeah. No, I think that really was a bit of a dream team in a lot of ways. From like from a productivity standpoint, for sure, because just I feel like everybody was just so good at their jobs and so capable. But the real special part was more the just rapport that we all developed together. And we had those daily meetings with Tal in Tal's office that were, it was never like shit, we've got to go to this meeting. Never, never. It was always like, we got our meeting now. It's going to be about 45 minutes of laughs, probably, you know, or like shit talking, but like in a fun way. It was fun. It was fun to work with that team. And at the same time, I felt like it was productive too. So, I mean, that's a balance that I think anybody would really love to have. I definitely, I look back at those meetings and those days working with that team as definitely like a kind of a golden era in some ways, for sure.
Absolutely special. And you know what? To Tal's credit, I mean, to all of our credit, we were pretty self-sufficient. Everybody cared, everybody was invested, and everybody was confident.
And Tal was that type of manager, I will say.
And part of what made Tal special too is he knew that we were working at all hours anyway. You know what I'm saying? And so he knew that, like, unless you're getting a phone call, like, yeah, dude, like, you can afford to just sit here from 9:15 to 10 and shoot the breeze. You know what I'm saying? And we'll touch on some things and this, that, or the other thing. But I mean, I learned so much about what it really meant to. I learned so much about what were things I could change and what were things I couldn't. Like, kind of, I still have issues with just like feeling like I'm the cause of something that has gone wrong in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But Tal had a way of saying, like, well, this is where the system is letting you down, or this is where this person is letting you down. And here's maybe what you could have done differently, but big picture, like, it's all fine, you know? And
it's not all on you, because you do. I mean, even I noticed your tendency to take everything onto yourself and like hold yourself personally accountable for a lot of things that really were not your fault or not within your control. But so I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
As well.
No, he did great with that. I could have worked with him for the rest of my life. A lot of good stuff, a lot of good memories, for sure.
I haven't heard from him in a while.
I hear from him every now and again, but you know what it is? I always text him like with a purpose. Like, I'll have a question. It's not like, hey, how you doing? It's just like, by the way, like, if I were to do this, would that be all right? Because I ask him, like, not that I'm doing anything. You know what it is? If I'm being honest with you.
Law you mean? Like law advice?
Yeah, exactly. I was working on, it's kind of stalled because of all this, but like I was working on like a reel for the Ducks, you know? And I was asking Tal about the legality of using music, if I don't really plan to monetize it, but it is going to be public, and, you know. So, I mean, I stay in touch with him on things like that, and then, you know, we riff about, you know, just kind of some memories here and there. And
I do. I actually feel guilty because the last time that I reached out to Tal, I reached out to him. I mean, I did want to know how he was doing, so of course I asked him how he was, and we caught up a little bit. But what prompted me to actually reach out was we were trying to find some document, like an old SMG thing, and I thought he might know where I could find it. So it was like I was reaching out to him to ask him for a favor, but it was still really. He ended up not being really able to help me, but it was still really nice to at least catch up a little bit.
Oh, he's the man.
Do a reunion. I'm still a proponent of that team. Exactly the group of people we were talking about should do some sort of happy hour. When the world goes back to somewhat normalcy, whenever that may be.
No, at the very least, we could do one of these Zooms.
Or we could do a Zoom. I could see Tal being a hard no on that. For
yeah, he would not.
I could see him be like, I'm not doing that. I'm not.
or he would do that, and it would just be like the three of our faces, and then Tal's just like a black screen.
You know? He'd be audio only.
Exactly that. You'd be like, oh man, this is gonna be my second impression of the damn thing. You'd be like, James, why do you have to see me? You know?
They're pretty good though. Pretty good.
Dude, I'm not bad.
I haven't seen him in a while, but it's yeah, it covered it for me.
Feeling pretty empowered. I feel pretty good. I think any impression in like 3-second spurts, that might be your guy. My favorite meeting moment, probably of all time. I gotta pull it out, man. I'm so sorry.
I've known that this is coming, by the way. This will be no surprise, but please.
Is when we were at one particular meeting, and I swear to God, you forgot where you were, man.
I'm just very passionate about Kate Beckinsale. That's the reality of the situation. I have a strong crush on her. I always have, and so you're right. Maybe I forgot where I was, or maybe just the love is too strong for her.
I swear to you, James blacked out. And James is the brightest guy I know, and he's the most chill demeanor. I mean, I can't give him more credit if I even tried.
I knew this was coming.
One of my favorite meeting memories is somehow we might have even been talking about celebrity crushes or anything like that. Like I said, these meetings were really very loose. And
It was somewhat on topic. It was not like completely out of nowhere. It was just way more intense than anything else anyone else was saying.
Yes. And I think like we went around and I might have said like, yeah, Emily Blunt is pretty attractive. You know what I'm saying? And I forget who Mike said or this, that, or the other thing. I remember we were talking about how Mike looked kind of like James Franco. That was pretty good. But anyway, James says Kate Beckinsale. And he says Kate Beckinsale as normal as anybody. But suddenly, like, what is the name of the film? Underworld? Is that what it's called?
Well, there's actually two. Yes, Underworld and Van Helsing. Both fit this criteria.
Oh man,
it was Underworld, and I think it's good memory.
Somebody brings up the fact that they saw her in Underworld, and like literally, just like we're listing movies she was in. Like I think Click came up, this, that, and the other thing, because I think Mike might have needed to know.
Beckinsale and Click is definitely yes.
And Underworld comes up, and James goes, and I love James with all my heart, and he can tell you about 90 embarrassing stories about me. But James goes, and I quote, he's like, "Oh yeah, all leathered up."
The worst part was the just deafening silence and wide eyes that followed for like 10 seconds, and then eruption of laughter. But like.
And Mike goes, "He's the perfect guy to do it." Mike goes like, "Oh my God," you know? Yeah, man. So James really likes Kate Beckinsale, and for a quick moment in the middle of the workplace, his cards were really on the table.
I do, and they were. This is all true. I won't deny it.
Okay. We're gonna move on.
I fully, by the way, I was kind of in my own head, like wondering. I was expecting it, but wondering if that story would come up.
You do that too. I appreciate you being a good sport about it.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it happened. It happened.
I will open it up. I was ja, you know. No, man. You know what? Actually, perfect opportunity to make fun of me. You and I took a little trip together.
We did.
This face already.
we did take it, and it was a great trip. It was a great trip until I got sick. That part sucked, but.
You get sick. We took a trip to Canada together. Check out some schools, and James was the man because I feel like at every school we went to, I had like 4 questions. And then, like, after my 4 questions were answered, I'd be like, cool, you know? Like, yeah,
another classroom, another smartboard, another cafeteria. I mean, now it's been 5 years of doing these tours, so I know where every classroom looks the same.
Yes. But no, like, I want to stress, like, as much as I, made fun of him a little bit, like, a minute ago, like, this is where James is the man because we toured all these schools and, like, I'm telling you, like, I'm confident, and James will tell you I'm confident, but, like, I would just be like, I would have 2-3 questions, and then I'd be like, really nice. Like, yeah, I could see sending a kid here. And James was the man because he always had like something to actually ask and like do. And like I'm telling you, man, if he weren't there, like these would be still really quality tours because it's not like I didn't have any questions, but like he would just be like, cool. When's the next room? You know, like, and James was a man. You bailed my ass out more than you freaking realized.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it.
Well, plus, man, as you know, I was doing all the driving, you know, for better or worse.
You were for better or worse is a great way to describe it. I felt that in all my years of traveling, my life was the most threatened at certain points in the car with Tom in Canada.
All right. So, one, the whole thing's in kilometers. You know what I'm saying? So they'd be like, make a turn at 2 kilometers. So I'd be like braking a little bit, and I'd be like, where do you think the turn is? You know? And it took a little while to feel out. And then there was the car we rented was much longer than my little green car.
It was a Sonata, Hyundai Sonata.
Ooh, keen
I
nerve.
remember that. I guess probably because of the near-death experiences, but.
All right. So the only 2 things that actually happened, like believe me, it was a clunky ride because with the kilometers, I was just like,
a lot of Tim Hortons, shit ton of Tim Hortons.
I guess this is coming up. Yeah, exactly. Just like really cautious turns is what I'll say.
Yeah.
There was one time in a roundabout, I didn't really realize it was a roundabout. And so I just like kind of started going at the same time with this car. That wasn't the best moment.
It wasn't a car, Tom. It was a tractor trailer.
Yeah, okay. It was a vehicle with 4
An enormous vehicle.
Several wheels.
For accuracy of the story.
So that was bad. That was genuinely the rough part of the show. Good God, it was a show. But
felt like it at times.
Thing that happened that was really not on me. It just kind of sucked that it was at night. Vancouver has these streets.
Oh yeah.
Weird, and they'll suddenly go from one direction to another, and you have to bear right, or you're going into oncoming traffic. And even before like you get this image in your head where you're like, holy shit, Tom was driving into oncoming traffic. The truth is, no, I wasn't. But there was like this hot second where it's just like, I don't think I'm in the right lane. And then there were no cars. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like I'm an asshole that's going to drive towards headlight.
And you were never like actually in the wrong lane. You were just about to be.
Yeah. And it was one of those moments because I'm a very honest person, and especially when I'm driving, I think I said aloud, which made it worse. I was just like, I don't know if I'm in the right lane, which would scare the hell out of me too. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think genuinely on the streets in Vancouver, which I really don't consider my fault, I was just like suddenly like the lane ended, but the road kept going, and I was just like, I don't know if I should go straight. And so suddenly you have Dennis and James. Dennis is the Brazilian colleague that we're traveling with. Like they're suddenly paying attention, and they're just like looking, and I'm just like, oh, okay, like I think I'm gonna bear this way. It was fine. And then to my credit, we looked at it again by day, and even James and Dennis were just like, oh yeah, that is confusing. I'm just like,
oh yeah, that was definitely objectively confusing.
Okay.
If you just kept going straight, all of a sudden you'd be going the wrong way on a one-way road, like just without having to turn or anything, without any traffic lights, nothing.
And then there was one time I tried to cut through a parking lot to get somewhere, and I wound up on like a drive-through line. And
but like that was just funny. That one was just funny. That wasn't dangerous in any way.
And James, who's sick at this point, he is the poor guy. He's just like, I think you're on the drive-through lane. And it was one of those like out of a movie moments where like I don't even let him get the sentence out. I'm like, I know, I can't turn. It was about as close to F you as I've ever said to James, you know?
Oh, yeah. I remember it being like, are we getting something from the drive-through?
I'm just like, I can't turn. Can you turn? Like, I'm not, like, do you want to take the wheel, man? Like, I can't turn right now. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. This car has to move.
Actually, I think you maybe might have been like, also, there might have been a little added frustration because I think I was supposed to drive that day. Like, you had driven in the first part of the trip, and then I was supposed to drive. And then because I was really not feeling well, you being the kind, compassionate guy that you are, said, I'll drive. And I really was feeling so shitty that I wasn't even like, nah, man, it's fine. I was like, okay, yes, you drive. And that was after the couple near-death experiences. So, I mean, like,
Yeah. Well, just finish me off at this point, Tom. What I will say, though, for as sick as you were feeling, what raised your spirits quite a bit for a brief moment was when we were driving home from Squamish or House Sound, and the sun in the mountains was like right in my eyes, like not even like a semblance. It was just driving into the pearly gates, which is what James almost experienced anyway. But there was a point where we realized that like you couldn't see, and so Dennis says like, I have sunglasses, you should wear them, and I'm just like, I guess, because I have to. And so there was a point where I looked like a complete ass because I literally had my prescription glasses, and then on top of that I have like these giant aviators, and I just see James.
Dennis is fashionable, so he definitely had some fashionable sunglasses.
The glasses were probably more expensive than my entire ensemble. Let's be real about it. And so I just see James, who's pale and quiet the whole time. The poor guy's just gutting it out like a champion. And I just see him like lean over and like he snaps this photo with his phone, and he's just laughing to himself. And I'm just like, yeah, that better not see the light of day, man.
I don't even know where that photo is. I don't know if I have it. They'll make me really. I'm gonna look for it. For it after that.
If I see it on Instagram later, we're gonna have a problem.
Just to share with you.
That was a treasure trip by all means. What a beautiful, beautiful song. Now, is there anything I'm missing out on that trip?
No. I think that's pretty well covered for sure. It was what, like a 4-day trip, 5-day trip?
Yeah, I think it was about 5 days because we went to both ends of the country.
Yeah, that was a big one. We were on the move constantly. We were getting up at 6 a.m., catching flights or driving pretty much every day.
Exactly. And I remember, what's scary, which shows the time of my life that it was? I remember over the course of that trip, you asked me at least 3 times, like, did you eat anything today?
Oh, that is good. I'm glad you brought that up. I was genuinely concerned for like how much you were eating the whole eating and drinking also throughout the whole trip, because like I'd be like every time we go to Tim Hortons, I'd get something and you'd just get like water. That was it.
Yeah, man. That's what nerves will do to you, man. Like
we'd get to the end of the day and be like, Tom, I don't think I've been with you all day. I don't think I've seen you eat anything. Like, what's happening?
With his mouth full,
I'm chewing this food fall out of my mouth.
Would you like my second donut? No, thank you.
I need some of my leftovers. Like, eat something. You'd have like a banana, and that would be it for the whole day.
Old habits die hard, man. Matter of fact, anyone I work with now could probably tell you the same thing.
Same thing? Nothing's changed, huh?
So, we've already covered to no small extent how much I could be kind of a wreck certain times. But probably the only time in my life I've seen you rattle ever, comically enough, is when we were discussing the very walls that are behind you right now.
My house.
Yeah. Man.
Home ownership, or at that time, I think it was home purchasing.
Yes.
It was a stressful ordeal.
Dude, so it is, man, and I would never poke fun at that in my life. What I am kind of making fun of is James and I would both deal with stressful situations all day. And rest assured, man, like modesty aside, we were both exceptional at the job, rest assured. And James continues to be to this day. And I just faked it until I made it, But I'm telling you, the only time where I saw James like genuinely just like, can't do this, like, Lois, just decide for me, just pick it, is when he was deciding what color to paint the rooms of his home.
Coincidentally, the color that Lois voted for, I ended up loving. It's beach glass, Benjamin Moore beach glass. came out great. I chose all the other colors. I just agonized over it.
Heavily so. Let's be clear about that. Baby boy. And first of all, actually, you know what? Let me bring up something else. Like, this isn't much of a story. I don't think I've started to say baby boy until you and I started working together. And now I feel like I say it about 90 times.
You definitely said it around me frequently.
I don't, like, yeah, man. Like, I think you were there for the birth of that.
Frequent one, yeah. Well, there were a lot of situations that warranted that sort of expression, though. It's just...
Yeah, dude, we can get into situations all day. You know what I was thinking about the other day? This might be the only one that's appropriate for, like, public sharing. Is I remember when one of the Canadian kids did something stupid in the Okanagan pronunciation. You like that, James? I practiced that for you.
I sure do, because we were both pronouncing it incorrectly for way too long.
We're representing this program, and this is this is my one of my favorite districts, and I'm just saying Okanagan, you know. And
I just copied you. I just assumed you were right. I was saying the same thing. I was saying it wrong for a year too.
And I was like too far gone. Like, even when I found out it was wrong, it was just like, well, this is how I pronounce it, you know.
You've been saying it this one way 2,000 times. It's hard to change.
Yeah, man. But I remember we were on the phone because one of the kids did something stupid.
Yeah.
Carol called the person's bag. She called it a pack sack. And I just remember trying to have this really serious conversation with her. And it was so serious and it was so warranted. And Carol's so bright and caring, and it was a pleasure to work with her. But she's saying that this kid brought in something stupid in what I would call his backpack, but she keeps calling it his pack sack.
I think most people would call it that.
Yes, and every time she says pack sack, I'm like, oh, you know, that's awful, you know?
It's a serious situation, but kind of hard to take it seriously.
Exactly.
Saying that.
And this is where we go back to, like, I swear to God, I'm nothing but like an oversized 3-year-old, because, like, I get off the phone with Carol and I'm like going into James like a gossiping dude, and I'm just like, yo, dude, I'm like, he did something stupid, but
that's not what I want to talk to you
yeah,
about.
Exactly, dude. I'm such an idiot, and that's why did they let me trade anybody, you know? Yeah, kid did something dumb, might have to go home, but she was calling
it. There are a lot of ones like that, a lot of really funny, like, word things that people said in emails that we would just die laughing about, and then just write randomly to each other, or you would write it on my whiteboard. You would come into my office and just write these random phrases on my whiteboard of things that we thought were funny, pretty much.
I appropriate you, bro.
Like, if you read it out of context, it's just nonsense.
I appropriate you might be my favorite.
I don't know if you wanted to not mention this one, but Nacho Fall Down has got to be one.
Oh, yes, dude. Dude, I want a coffee mug that says Nacho Fall Down. Oh, Nacho Fall Down. This poor kid, who wound up not being a poor kid. Like, I don't think.
No, he was pretty poorly, like, behaved. That was.
Yeah. Yeah. So he wound up like breaking his arm before his trip, which is awful. But the way the agent put it was just like Nacho fall down and broke his arm. Like it sounded like a defunct nursery rhyme, you know? Which I love. That's the thing, man. Like if you don't approach these serious ass situations that are coming at you at all hours of the day, if you don't approach it,
it makes it a lot more tolerable and a lot more just enjoyable to do it, because it is like an emotionally draining job at times. So
yes, indeed. Yeah, man.
to be able to be able to find something to laugh about, or someone to laugh with about something, helps. Definitely helps.
Or you remember that time we were talking to that wonderful individual who helped organize the BC transfers, and that person wouldn't let us get a word in? Yeah.
Yes, of course I do.
Yo, I'm not even saying this for anybody's benefit. Like that reached a point where like I was literally like ripping the buttons from my shirt.
Both of us. It was like we were trapped. We were trapped in this phone call. It was like, I don't even know if our microphone is working. It doesn't matter, actually. You just need the speaker.
My skin was on fire, man. Like it was, and you have gosh darn Nacho, Walls Hockey Puck Desk Nacho, and he's there laughing too. Oh man.
I think I had to mute us at a point, yes. So we'd be like, what the fuck is going on right now? I remember that one for sure.
And Nacho's like, what the fuck is that? You know? That's my third impression, dude. I'm nailing it. Oh, dude. Oh, man. Well, speaking of Nacho, man, I think it's time we run.
Sounds good. No one's going to get that but you and me.
Man, dude. Oh, man. Speaking of Nacho, that was pretty quick. All right, I'm done. But
it's not the same Nacho that fall down, by the way.
No, it's not, man. Nacho was always upright. That much is for sure.
A very common name in Spain. Nickname.
Dude, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we call it quits, man?
Oh no, I mean I had really nothing in particular that I wanted to cover to begin with. I just thought it would be fun, and I was right. It was fun.
Cool, man. Well, James, man, you know, I kind of hate this part because it makes it sound like I'm never going to see you again. But I want to thank you. I said 90 times on this interview that, you know, if I didn't approach the job we had, and as stressful as it was, like a big kid, it would have driven me nuts if it didn't already. And I always learned a lot from you, and it was always a real pleasure kind of working and growing with you. And I'm really glad that, you know, not only we worked together, but we grew together, man. I appreciate it. And I give you a lot of credit for what you continue to do for that company. I know everything that has to go into it. Thank you very much.
Oh, man. Thank you for having me. Thank you for all those kind words. Like I said, I don't think that my experience would have been as valuable or enjoyable or memorable without you as a part of it. And I'm also very grateful that we continue to, you know, keep in touch and remain in each other's lives. And hopefully when all these things that's going on, all the stuff that's going on subsides, we can actually hang out in person. We've been pretty good about getting to happy hours every so often. I'd like to do it more, but I think we've been at least pretty good maintaining that. So we'll get back to that, I hope.
Absolutely, man. Very soon, I hope. All right, man. Thank you. This has been, my bad, forgot. This is an actual show. This has been the Chronicles. The search continues. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to James, and I'll see you all later.